I'll just give you a little bit of background about the work that Janine's been doing in the past year. We launched an accessible information standard report last November. So it's been a whole year that Janine has been working with our providers to raise awareness and offer support with resources so that people could improve their the way that they help people with communications needs. We've seen a lot of improvements, we're really pleased to say, and in the report there is listed down all the trusts that we've worked with and the improvements that they've made in the past year, which we are really, really pleased about. We have got more promised. There will be more to come on this as well. In particular, Janine's tried to engage with GP surgeries, which I think she'll mention that. It hasn't been easy, but the CCG have agreed to put the implementation of the Accessible Information Standard on agendas when they do their contract monitoring reports. So I think that's a really big step forward. So providers will be asked by their commissioners what they're doing to meet the standards. So we're very pleased about that. Although, to be honest, there is a huge inconsistency, absolutely huge variation. Some people are using the standard fabulously, and others have got a lot of learning to do, let's say. So I'm going to hand over to Janine, who's going to tell us some stories about what this has actually meant for people in practice.
Yeah, I mean, as Sandie said, you can sort of have a look in the report that we have managed to influence quite a number of providers and trusts to make different changes. Some small changes, some are larger changes, and Sandie also mentioned that work is continuing. There are a number of IT issues in regards to bigger trusts, sort of updating of their systems, which is taking a little bit longer than one would have hoped, but they are looking at bigger issues than just AIS. For instance, NWAFT is actually looking at 4 million patients' records to be combined and put onto one system. So that's an awful lot of information that they have to put onto an updated system. So that's one of the reasons why some of the accessible information standard is a little bit slower in coming through than perhaps it ought. But if I can go back a little bit about when our report first came out, with the two Healthwatches at the time, it was Healthwatch Peterborough and Healthwatch Cambridgeshire, we're getting a lot of stories from people with sensory and learning disabilities, and hence the report was produced with the help from a lot of charities and patient stories. One of the stories that we actually heard about, which you may remember, was from a chap called Jason. He was a British Sign Language. British Sign Language was his first language. He got taken to A&E, and unfortunately there wasn't a British Sign Language interpreter at the hospital. He wasn't able to get anybody that was able to communicate between himself and medical staff. So he was at the A&E department seriously ill with a lung condition for around about 6 hours before anybody could actually get any help for him. Now working with a partnership really with CDA, which is the Cambridgeshire Deaf Association, and NWAF, which is North Anglia Foundation Trust, we have Sign Live. And if you haven't actually come across Sign Live before, what that is a British Sign Language person on the end of a phone using an iPad. The hospital, in this particular case, would ring the number, and within about 30 seconds, that telephone call will be answered, and there will be a signer being able to be on the end of an iPad, and then they can communicate between the medical staff as well as the patient as well. So not only does that actually help the patient and their symptoms being sorted faster. It's also helping the hospitals not breaching their 4 hours time for see people in the A&E department. Yesterday we had a meeting at Peterborough City Hospital, and we had a quick update in that this has been trialled in the A&E department, both at Hinchinbrook and Peterborough City Hospital, and as a result this has actually saved the hospital 3 breaches in patient waiting time, and obviously those 4 patients they've seen in total so far with this trial, they've been seen a lot faster, they've given consent, and they've had their medical condition sorted a lot faster than they would have done previously. So that has worked really, really well. Because this was a success, yesterday the board has actually agreed that the Sign Live can now be developed through the hospital. So they will be looking at Hinchinbrook, Peterborough City and Stamford as well. There's a little bit more work to do on that. They haven't quite decided where this is actually going to go, but the initial thoughts would be perhaps using it in air tree ward, which is for people who have had heart attacks and strokes. There's going to be maybe the ear, nose and throat wards, and another interesting development may be taking it into if a patient is a British Sign Language user, if they are wanting to be discharged, sometimes if their medication is quite a complicated issue, to get the interpreter with the right level of language skills, is the best way to put it, that they could be waiting for their discharge for an extra 2 or 3 days, waiting for the right British Sign Language interpreter to come to explain to them their new medication and things like that. So of course using Sign Live, that could be sorted within moments really rather than days. So that's saving an awful lot of hassle really for the patient who's desperate to get home, as well as hospital time and freeing up the bed as well. So that would be a really good thing if we could get onto that. The other thing that was mentioned yesterday, as I say, things are all happening as we go through. There has been a mention that the Peterborough City Hospital is going to be taking on somebody who will be working and developing leaflets and patient letters and putting it into plain, simple, easy to read language, which will be really of benefit to people with learning difficulties, but also people with dementia and people who are deaf as well, and as well as the general public, because quite often if something is in an easy read language, then we can all understand what they're actually saying. So lots of things are actually developing there. So if sort of going back full circle to the report, if the Sign Live was about when Jason first went into the hospital with an A&E, then he wouldn't have been waiting and suffering for that length of time. A quick comment, which I should have said at the beginning, was that Sign Live is not going to replace live signers. It is just there as a backup tool. So the people that have actually tried it have said they like to see a live signer. It just makes things just a little bit simpler. But in a case of an emergency, it's fast and it seems to be efficient as well. So that's a sort of a great example of Accessible Information Act actually working for patients. The other side that we've worked with are with a group of young people with learning disabilities called the Access Champions, and they're based at Peterborough City College, and they've been absolutely fantastic team of people to work with. And what we've actually done with the GP surgeries within Peterborough is to try and work with them and the Access Champions to look at the websites that the GP surgeries actually have to make it more accessible. So together with the guide that we in Healthwatch has actually produced, we've been able to get that information into the GP surgeries to try and make their surgeries more accessible to everyone, basically. So that's worked quite well. The best sort of result for that work with the Access Champions at the moment is that we've been able to get to the Octagon surgery partnership before they've actually developed their website. So initially, as the title suggested, the Octagon was going to be 8 practices, but I think it's now up to 9 or 10 practices, and we, at a rough estimate, I think that's going to be about 200,000 patients. So we've managed to use the Access Champions to get in at the right time there, so we've managed to get quite a good change in that way as well. But as Sandie has said, getting into primary care, GP surgeries has been a very difficult task, really. We have been able to get into about 4 or 5 GP surgeries, and they've been very interested in some of the changes that they can make. It was quite interesting. They were quite interested to find that a lot of the small changes, which could make the biggest difference to a patient, doesn't necessarily take a lot to put into place, and it doesn't actually cost any money. One interesting surgery actually in March that we went to with a volunteer from Campsite who was actually blind herself. We gave an awareness training to all the staff who actually worked at the surgery, and just listening to Vera, who was the volunteer from Campsite, they were absolutely blown away with the information that she was passing on to them. Even the medical staff were quite surprised at the issues that she actually had accessing health and the GP surgery. So that was fantastic, really great result, and it would be really fantastic if in the future more GPs could actually take that up to train up their staff with the awareness. So I think those are the sort of 2 or 3 bigger things that I wanted to illustrate.